welcome everyone to Universal Recovery. Hi, Steph. How are you?
Hi TJ, how you doing, buddy? Always great to see you. I missed you last time, but Jeremy was there and he was a good substitute, but just a substitute. I've got to stress
Oh, Jeremy's wonderful. He can be more than just a substitute. So, welcome
that.
everyone. I'm really grateful to be have the honor of co-hosting at least one Tuesday every month, and along with Saf Bucksy. And this is a show where we talk about mental health, well-being, recovery, and so much more. And Saf, what I've been sitting with, I thought it might be a really interesting starting point. And that is all the different ways that we now have the ability to connect with people around the world. I was really leaning into that. I've done a lot of podcasts and a lot of shows in the last week. And I know you have your book. I'd love to hear how that's going. And just tune into the gratitude of being able to spread this message. It really is a message of hope and using. I love in the beginning, you talked about your stormy past, bringing your ability to help people in such a profound way.
Yeah, I mean, and on your first point, TJ, is the technology. I mean, technology has been because this year and a quarter, whatever it is, since we've been in lockdown and with the pandemic, especially in the UK, I think it's slightly more relaxed in the USA or at least in most of the states. But here it's been like being in prison.
Mhm.
It really has. It's only recently they've relaxed a little bit, but for the last year or so, everyone's been indoors more or less, and I think if it wasn't for technology, we wouldn't be able to help people who are experiencing and suffering addiction and trauma. And it's shows like this and things that you do and I do as well, away from Universal Recovery, I think has helped so many people out there. But after saying that, the relapse rate has increased in the UK. I don't know how it is in the US. People have died, not just from COVID, but from addiction. People have become homeless, isolated, boredom. All that's been going on. So I think that stresses the point of the importance of us doing this. One, because it is online, and two, it's global, so we can try and serve as many people as we can around the world. And that's, I always look at the two sides of everything. And I think if I was to look at a benefit or a positive of the pandemic, it would be that I've personally found a platform, found a medium where I could actually spread my message globally without actually going to these countries through StreamYard, through Zoom, through Teams, through botting, through whatever it is, where it's been there all the time, but I've never used it, and what got me to use it was pandemic. So that's the positive of it. But yeah, you're right. It's sharing our message. It's trying to educate people, trying to help them grow, trying to guide people, and from many perspectives. For me, from a personal perspective, just like yourself, but also from an academic perspective, and also from a vocational perspective, which I know that you do a lot of work in. I mean, how many treatment centers have you got conscious recovery in now? I mean, from this time last year to now, how many have you got now, Tijan?
Well, it's
Love to.
20, it's 20 at the moment. We're actually about to
Wow.
launch something really big that's going to allow it to become a much larger movement worldwide.
Wow.
And I love what you're bringing to the conversation, because there's always a light and a shadow to everything, right? And when we talk about the light side, if you will, of COVID and the pandemic, and specifically, I think shelter in place, because the pandemic has brought its own set of experiences. And obviously, I know, Saf, you have lost people. You lost one of your closest friends, and then there's the shelter in place that has a whole other set too. And when we talk about the light and the shadow, one of the things that is near and dear to me, and I know it is true for you too, Saf, and that is not to reject any of it, right? So when we talk about, like, here are all the great things that emerged from COVID, we're not saying the other things didn't exist. And in that same way, when we talk about relapse on the rise, mental health issues on the rise, suicide rates on the rise. We're also not saying that's the totality of the experience, right? And so, for me and in conscious recovery and my framework, moving out of the idea or the paradigm of good, bad, right, wrong, but look at all of it and recognize that it has been a difficult time for so many. And at the same time, look at us, Saf. I would have never met you, I'm guessing. Now we might have met, but I think this, the platform where we are coming together, I think for me is definitely a bite of everything that's happened with the pandemic and the shelter in place.
100%, 100%. I mean, as we know, a very good friend, and I want to add this is platform. We are on Spirituality Gone Wild. We are on their platform, on our platform, because we're all one family, and it's the founder of Spirituality Gone Wild, Debbie G, who I met, I think, over a year ago now, probably a bit longer. And I guess because of Debbie G, we met, and so you're right. It all started off with the pandemic, because I don't think, well, we don't know, but I don't think I would have been doing shows online. I would have been trying to go everywhere personally and flying here and doing this and doing that. And America, would I have even worked in America? I don't know. But it's because of technology that I'm able to do things. We're both able to do things at the other side of the pond. I mean, people in the UK now know you. I'm sure they knew you before, but they know you through this, for one, because we've got a lot of audience from the UK. We've got a lot of audience from the USA who know me through this. And we've got people from Cambodia watching. I'm waiting for the comments to come. Everyone's a bit shy tonight. Normally we get loads more, but Cambodia, Australia, not Australia this time, but different parts of Europe, Canada, India. We get so many people, watching this show. If they don't watch it live, they're definitely watching it in the replay. And it's so wonderful that we're able to be of service to people wherever they are in the world, because addiction doesn't care where you live. Addiction doesn't care where you're born. It doesn't care. It doesn't discriminate. And that's why it's wonderful that we can give a message and we can try and help people wherever they are in the world.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking about our mutual colleague Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate, who has a documentary coming out called "The Wisdom of Trauma." And as I was watching the opening, I was also leaning into that. That's your story. That's my story. That we do have a traumatic past, and that did lead to addiction in many different forms in my own case, and then ultimately recovery. But also to recognize without those traumatic experiences, I would not be able to do the work that I do today. And even maybe more importantly, I wouldn't have the passion for doing my work. Now, we could say it's sad that the work is needed because there's so much trauma in the world. And we can also say, isn't it wonderful that there are some of us, who have been able to heal a lot of that. And there were so many people that came into my life that helped me early on, just these angels, that came into my life and helped me heal. And now it's my turn, right? Now it's our turn. And I think about that title, The Wisdom of Trauma, because it is through some of my traumatic experiences that it's given me wisdom in a deeper way, maybe than someone who hasn't had those experiences. So again, there's always a light and a shadow. And to me, it's about integrating those.
Most definitely. I've been looking at the other platforms because we're on so many different platforms. So I thought, why aren't there any comments coming on this one? But I looked at Kimberly. Hi, Kimberly. Welcome to the show. Hi, Kimberly. Hi, Shika. Hi, Mez. Mez, my wife is watching. Let's give her a wave, shall we? TJ, she loves you.
Oh,
my wife thinks, the way you talk and the way you project yourself, she thinks you're just absolutely amazing. So I'm sure she'll be happy that I've given her a shout out for you. But yeah, Kimberly's saying, hello, love you both. I'm trying to listen more and talk less. Blessings. Hi, Kimberly. Hi, Shika. And hi, Mez. Please keep them all coming. Yeah, see, on one hand, obviously it's sad about the trauma and the addiction that we're in a place that we have to address it. But it's fact, it's life. It's been going on for years, many years. It's been going since the start of life. I think trauma's been happening, and off the back of trauma, society, environment, whatever it is, people have turned to different things in life over the years. And addiction has been a massive thing. We're talking drink, drugs, behavioral addictions, because we're not just because I think people have this preconceived idea that addiction is just drugs or just alcohol.
Yeah.
It's not just that, and I think that maybe that's something we could address today as well, TJ, because it's I'm not an addict, but you know what I mean. Mobile phones, right? Now, see, addiction. Some people say addiction is something that you do on a regular basis, or you do it too much, and there's consequences that come with it. So if I would say to someone, "You're a mobile phone addict," they're going to say, "Yeah, why? I've got no consequences with mobile phones," but there are, aren't there? I mean, can you be addicted to mobile phones?
Well, for sure. And I think we're just seeing the beginning of this because we now have generations coming of age, if you will, into adulthood that never lived without them. We have the electronic babysitter in a very different way. I mean, I know when I was growing up, it was the TV, but I certainly did not have an iPad in my hand at age 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And of course, again, we look at it and we look at there are incredible benefits. There's so much gratitude for these little mobile devices. We literally have computers in our hands that can give us answers, help us connect. Look at some of the social media platforms, and I've been able to stay connected with people all over the world in ways that I never could have without that platform and without these little amazing devices. And then the shadow side of it is that we have become addicted to it. Jeremy, my colleague Jeremy Miller, and I talk about this when we're on a Zoom call or when we're doing work, and then those texts start to come in. It's almost like a culture that we have to respond. I mean, I had this experience yesterday. I recorded a podcast, and I live in LA now, so I was driving home, which took about 45 minutes for 9 miles because traffic is back here. That we're back to normal in terms of traffic. And someone had texted me a couple of times while I was driving, and I was kind of decompressing and I didn't answer the text. And then I got an email from her saying, is your phone working? Because I texted you twice. And it was literally not even an hour later, right? And this isn't a judgment of her. This is more looking at our culture. Like there's an expectation. There must be something wrong. I didn't respond within the hour, right? And so there is something to that where we start to become addicted to, and one thing I want to point to, and this is just for me, I have done a news detox, and it came because of COVID for me, because I could no longer watch and listen to the pandemic of fear that was being, put toward us 24/7. And in our country, in the United States, issues of race, the politics, COVID, all of that was just coming at me. And I was realizing for myself that it was having an effect on me and there was an addiction to it. And the reason I'm saying this is I think the number one addiction for a lot of people is addiction to drama, right? And I personally unplugged and detoxed from it. And I can tell you I'm a lot happier. Now, there are people who say, oh, you're just burying your head in the sand, you're being an ostrich, and that could be true, but I'm very careful what I listen to because we talk about healthy eating, we talk about a healthy diet, but it's also what I put into my mind, my spirit, my emotions. And so if I'm watching, in our country, and you can speak to the UK, Saf, but in our country, we have these two major news networks that are giving the opposite version of the same story, and both with a sense of we have the answer and the other side is wrong. And then we're surprised that we're polarized, right? So, you can turn on Fox News and hear one version of the story, and then CNN and hear the opposite version. And I'm thinking, wow, this is the same event. And so for me, I'm choosing to detox, and I have not watched the news basically for a year, and I do
Wow.
feel better. And I do get the information I need, but the information I really need is the information of wholeness, of being uplifted. And that's really, I think, Seth, what you and I are up to. How can we be a voice for a different message? Michael Beckwith, my friend Michael Beckwith, says we are here to report from the new paradigm, right? So the old paradigm is divisiveness and fear, and the new paradigm is oneness. It's a message that we have the power within us to create our lives. And so I'm very clear for me that it is important to me, not only what I eat, but also what I digest in every other way as well.
That's beautiful, TJ. Before we get to Michael Beckwith, because you were on a platform with him and some other amazing guys. Kimberly, hi Ben. Ben Reynolds is watching. Hi Ben, welcome to the show. Kimberly says, me also super excited to have you both in my life, learning and gratitude healing, growing happiness, blessings. Thank you for sharing. You make a difference, love. And she said love again. And she's so right, because it's all about love. It's all about coming together. It's all about giving that message. It's all about working together as a community and trying to make a difference. And that's what you did over the weekend, right? You want to do some of the names, TJ. Some of the names TJ. If you guys didn't see it, I mean, I'm sure you can watch it again somewhere. I'm sure TJ will let you know. But TJ was on a platform. I think the whole platform was about addiction, and Scott Katamis was on it, who we both know quite well. But some of the people, like Michael was on it, Michael Beckwith, the great Russell Brand was on it, Dr. Gabor Mate. Tell us about it. What was the idea behind it, and where can people watch it if they haven't seen it?
Yeah, so our friend Scott Katamis created this along with some other people when the pandemic and the shelter in place started, and it started really. I was on one of their early shows, and it's Saturday Night Alive for the Peace Tribe, I think is the full title. And it really was a spiritual variety show. That was the idea. Like in the beginning of COVID, especially, people weren't able to connect physically. And those of us who have been parts of spiritual communities, I know for myself, I really missed it. I missed the music. I missed the connection. I missed the inspiration. So he, along with a few other people, started this on Saturday evenings. And it was really, I don't know if they would use this word, but I call it a spiritual variety show. They have comedians, sometimes they have musicians, and then they have inspirational speakers to give, maybe a 8 to 10 minute inspirational talk on a specific topic. And I watched over the course of several months, and I mean, they just had these incredible guests, Marianne Williamson, Michael Beckwith has been on, Dr. Joe Dispenza. I mean, I'm just naming a few, Neil Donald Walsh. I mean, some of the great luminaries, as they call it, they bring on different people. And so I was deeply honored, because when Scott got clear that he wanted to do a show on addiction, and there was a conversation about mental health, specifically around suicide and suicide ideology, if you will. I say ideology, but it's really they called it, I can't remember the term they used.
Ideation.
Well, it's ideation. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. But what they called it was suicidal fantasies. So anyway, when he asked me to, when he created that show, he asked me to co-host it with him and do a presentation. And then he brought together some amazing people, Dr. Michael Beckwith, Russell Brand, Dr. Gabor Mate, and I had the honor of being, there with them and, giving about a 10-minute inspirational message on how we can heal addiction. And of course, I have so much respect for all of them. Russell Brand was hilarious as always, and we had a lot of fun.
Anyway, that was one platform with some amazing people, but you were on an even better platform the week before, I believe. I know there was a wonderful woman, Dr. Was it Stanger? Louise Stanger?
Yes, Louise Stanger. Yeah.
And who was the other guy? Because that guy was just amazing.
Was it Saf? Was it Saf Buxey? Dr. Saf Buxey? Yeah, is that who you're referring to?
It was me. Yeah, that was fun, right? That was with Josie. Josie Herndon. Yeah, she's a lovely pioneer in addiction, just like yourself. And that was really, it was worth staying up for. I really enjoyed that. And this is it. This is what we do, right?
Yes.
I mean, it was like 3:00 in the morning, the UK time.
That's dedication, Saf. That is incredible to me.
You know what? Josie asked me, and it was a no-brainer. And then, once she confirmed that you're going to be on it, it was definite yes. Do you know what I mean? I probably would have said no if you weren't going to be on it, TJ.
Josie, I hope you're not watching right now.
No, it was a no-brainer, and I think it was important because she put me down as a spotlight author to talk about my book, and I always love to talk a little bit about the book because it means a lot to me, that book. I know you've written a few, and this is my first one, and I'm not really a writer, but now it's done. I just feel like where my life was, TJ, drug addict, alcoholic, causing mayhem, destroying everyone, to being a doctor, being honored to be a doctor, winning these awards. And we never get into this field for these accolades, but when they happen, it's like, wow, overwhelming. And then writing a book. Then writing a book, not for my own therapy, even though it was therapeutic, but when I do read back, it does bring back a lot of unhappy memories. But when I get feedback from people who talk about the book and how it may have helped them, or how it opened their eyes a little bit, or people who know me who didn't know what I went through, it's quite humbling and it's quite nice to hear people say things. I just want to say hello to my wife's cousin, Munni Ben. Munni Ben, she's from India. So what time is it in India at the moment? Oh, it's only about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So hi, Munni Ben. Welcome to the show. This is TJ, if you haven't seen TJ before. So say hi to Munni Ben. And my wife is saying you both are amazing. I think she's talking about you, not me, TJ. Because she doesn't say that to me when we're alone. So the book was, when you wrote your first book, I think that was a few years ago. Has that been a while now since you wrote your first?
My first book, Conscious Being, came out in 2015.
How did it? How was the process? Because it took me, even though mine's an autobiography. Yours wasn't an autobiography, was it? As such, so for me, it was reasonably easy to write in terms of what I wanted to put down because it was my life, and who knows me better than myself. So that bit was fine. Putting it all together afterwards took a while. Doing a bit of research of different locations and trying to make it into a story. But it took me 2.5 years to 3 years to actually do that book. But once it was done, I felt happy. Once it was with the editors, I felt happy. Once we saw the design cover, I was happy. But once it was published and in my hand, I've got quite a few of them. It was like, wow. How was that? How was it for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. It took multiple years. I think the first idea of Conscious Being, my first book, started in, I would say, 2010, 2011. And then I started writing probably 2012, 2013. So it took 2 or 3 years. And, I'm reflecting on, I think, one moment that was so powerful for me. I got an email from someone maybe 6 months after the book came out, and she lived in a small town in the Midwest. And my first book wasn't about addiction at all. It's about spirituality. And I wrote it with the intention of us having a conversation because, as much as I love some of the incredible spiritual teachers, sometimes when I read their books, they feel really dense, right? Spiritual concepts. I remember early in my path in my 20s, I would have to read a paragraph 3 times to understand what it was saying. So my intention and what was clear for me is I wanted to talk about some of these deep spiritual concepts, but really, really simple language like you and I are talking right now. Very simple, very straightforward. How do I live a life more on purpose? How do I move beyond my belief in my limitation and my lack and step into a life of infinite possibility? And I got an email from her saying, I live in this small town in the Midwest and no one is talking this way around me. And how grateful she was that finally a book was speaking her language. And even more than that, I was able to direct her to a spiritual community that I knew of nearby. And a few weeks later, she emailed me saying, "Oh, I finally found my tribe. I finally found my community." And so, we end up touching people's lives that we never get to meet. I feel deeply honored sometimes when I go to a treatment program that has been using conscious recovery, and I get to meet the clients. And it's on one hand it's kind of cute because sometimes they get a little starstruck, and then I'm thinking, wow, that's interesting. Such an interesting byproduct of all this. But the truth is, I get to touch people's lives that I will never ever meet, and that to me is my purpose. And knowing that purpose and coming through my own dark nights plural of the soul, and how I was given such a free gift from so many beautiful people of transformation, and sharing that is just so powerful. And writing a book is one way to do it. And I promised myself I was only going to write one, and then I wrote two. I'm about to publish my third one plus all the workbooks, and now I'm saying, okay, that's it after the trilogy. But then I started thinking about an autobiography. So maybe, in a few years.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm thinking about the second one.
Of
I'm
course.
thinking. I mean, I don't think it'll be well. The autobiography's done now, so I'm sure it'll be something to do with addiction. Not sure, not sure what. My wife is saying, would love to read TJ's books. Can we order them, please? Well, I actually know. I'm talking to her, by the way. I actually know him personally. So what I will do is I'll put a nice little word in and see if we can sort something out for me. Of course we can, and we will do. In fact, I've got the Conscious Recovery book, and I've got the workbook as well, actually. So
Wonderful.
if she's nice to me, I might lend it to her. What do you reckon, TJ? But Kimberly's saying my dream is to write a book as well. Hi, Joe Zappa. Welcome to the show, Joe. Good to see you. Everyone's coming on this platform today. No one's coming on this platform, hence I've put no messages up. But with regarding touching people's hearts, that was always, when I wrote that book, in the back of my mind, hence I've called it, apart from Out of the Madness, the subtitle was A Message of Hope.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to give people. I want to give people hope. Yes, people have had. My daughter's watching now. I don't know what's going. This is like a family affair. TJ.
Perfect.
Hi, Alia. This is TJ. TJ, Alia, TJ. Great to have Alia and Mez and Mundi Ben from India. This is like a family affair today, TJ. Who would have thought? Yeah. So when I, always in the back of my mind, I wanted to give a message of hope. I wanted to give people hope that no matter what you've been through, whether it's serious trauma or any kind of trauma, or whether it's addiction because of the trauma, or some kind of mental health issues, or whatever it is, you can get out of it. Now, I'm not saying that mine is the most harrowing story in the world, and it's not, but it's personal to me. It's my trauma to me, and whatever it is, I got out of it, and I'm still getting out of it, and it's a continual journey. It's something that I do on a daily basis, and a big part of it is by helping others get out of it as well.
Yeah.
And that's, some of them. I mean, even Kimberly's read my book, and I think she's finished it. I think she enjoyed it. She goes, "It's amazing to be alive today," and she says, "Family matters." Of course they do, and it's. I think the idea behind it wasn't just to put my story out there, just for the fun of it, because I'm not proud of some of the stuff that I've done, but I think it's important to put that out there because you can see a transformation in front of your eyes from what I was to what I am today. Look, I'm not perfect. Okay, I still have bad days. I still get angry. I still get sad. I still want to do this and want to do that. But the difference is today that I'm in a better spiritually fit condition than I ever was. And as we say in conscious recovery, I'm back to my true and essential self
Yeah.
of who and what I was.
Yeah, and I think our personal stories are relevant in that get to help someone with that story. You and I have done shows on shame, and shame, believing we're broken, believing we're damaged, there's something fundamentally wrong with us. We identified that that's such a root cause of addiction, and it's a root cause of all sorts of other behaviors as well. And again, we're talking about addiction in a much broader way than drugs and alcohol. But, this overly simplistic definition I give is seeking anything, any substance, any behavior, any person outside of myself to try to heal something that feels broken within. Right. So, my own story, because there's a lot of shame in my story, and there's a lot of me believing that I was broken and damaged. And then I acted that way in the world, and I would love to say to you, Saf, that I'm only talking about before I got sober, but that's not true for me. Multiple different periods in my life, I had forgotten who I was and what my purpose is, and became more focused on acquiring stuff, for example, or looking good. And, always a deeper level of healing that can happen. And, I had experiences later in my recovery, 20 years sober, being 40 years old and 20 years sober, and seeing a deeper level of opportunity for healing, and watching what would look like some horrific things happening in my life. And they were really opportunities for a deeper healing. And so in some ways it's like, who am I not to share that, right? Because we all have our stories, and our stories, and I'll say what I mean by story. I don't mean rehashing and retelling the story, but our own personal journeys, and being able to share that. I think that's the power. And it's much different than, a spiritual teacher maybe who says, here is this spiritual framework, and it can help you live a life more connected with your true nature. That's all really wonderful. But when we have the courage to say, and here is how I did it, because here's what happened when I felt disconnected. And, it's all, when we look at it through the lens of it's all fuel for transformation, then we have a message to share that regardless of what has happened, and even regardless of what you've done, you are a whole and perfect spiritual being, and you're worthy of a life of deep connection and purpose. And I think that message is so much more powerful than really anything else we can share.
Exactly, and there's so many people out there who ridicule addicts for their past mistakes, and
Mm.
I think we've got to try and stay away from that, and try and stem away from that, and guide each other, to redemption, and teach and educate people. Because yes, it addiction for me, I can say, made me do some pretty bad things. I'm not going to lie about it. I did some horrific things sometimes. But it was when I was intoxicated. It was because there was something missing. There was disconnection in my life, because I don't do these things anymore. I don't take drink or drugs anymore. I don't gamble anymore. Yes, as I say, we're not perfect, and we do have bad days and good days and whatever it is. But let's try and help each other. Let's try and support each other. Let's try and get people through this phase of trauma, addiction. We can only this is what we do, right? Conscious recovery is all about looking through the unresolved trauma, isn't it? And then looking at the cycle of addiction.
Yeah. And it's really about returning to that place of wholeness. And I think that's, a little bit what makes conscious recovery a little different. That is, we're not saying that we're broken and how do we fix ourselves, right? Because that's a lot of what we see in the world. We see that in the Western medical model. What are your symptoms and how do we eradicate them? And that has a place. But I think looking backward, that has been the primary addiction model. It's like, what's wrong here? The addiction is wrong. The addiction is bad. We must get rid of it. We must stop drinking and using, and then fix ourselves. And so I'm coming in with saying that, and what if recovery is really about returning to who and what you truly are? What if it's more about unlearning and addressing the multiple layers of trauma and disconnection from our true nature and shame? And as we heal that, because I actually know through experience that we can heal the underlying issues that drive addiction. And then from there, as we unlearn all of that, we recognize that underneath all of it the entire time was still this whole and perfect being. And recovery is about returning to that. And that's a really different way of viewing it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way. And the other way of viewing it is the Gabors, and the other ways. I mean, that it's not why the addiction, it's why the pain.
Yes.
right? And that's where the trauma bit comes into it. There's people who don't even call it addiction; they call it bonding and connection.
Yeah.
Okay, so what they're saying is that when you're addicted to something, you are bonding with something.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're addicted to crystal meth or addicted to cocaine or addicted to alcohol or addicted to gambling, you're bonding with crystal meth, you're bonding with cocaine, you're bonding with alcohol, you're bonding with gambling.
Yeah.
The
We're trying.
question,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
We're
question
trying.
is why, what is it that is missing in your life that you're bonding with this as opposed to something else?
Yeah, and then when we look at it, and you know this, Saf, in conscious recovery, we call addiction a brilliant strategy. So rather than saying what's wrong here, why do you keep doing that, right? Because that's sort of the mantra of someone who's stuck in an addiction. Why do I keep doing this? Why does this keep happening to me? Why can I not? The why. And when we can disconnect from that and ask different questions, what is the valuable question. One valuable question could be, what is it that I'm getting from this? Starting with all the ways that addiction is brilliant. Now, I want to be clear because people hear that sometimes and they're like, what do you mean? How can addiction be brilliant? I just lost my relationship, my job, my home. We look at the brilliance that it once was and how in the beginning it's something that served us. And you talked about this, Saf, so beautifully. It's really an attachment. If we were going to use a clinical term, we would call it an attachment disorder. I don't love the word disorder, but let's say we're trying to attach to something to feel whole again. Like that's the non-clinical way of saying that. Please, 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 we have our umbilical cord in our hand. Please feed me. Please love me. Please help me. And please help me to not feel this or help me to feel that. And so when we look at it through the lens of brilliance, okay, that was really brilliant in the beginning. But then the deeper questions are, and my friend Dr. Christine Pappas, who I'm co-authoring the Conscious Recovery for Eating Disorders workbook with, I facilitated a group. Well, she facilitated a group once and I was with her. And her opening question was, what are you hungry for? Right? What is my soul really hungry for? What am I yearning for? And there's information in the addiction, right? And for me, I was yearning to be loved. I was desperately wanting to feel connection. And when I did drugs the first time, I felt it, right? So of course I wanted more. Now that's maybe an overly simplistic way of viewing addiction, but for me it rings really true. And then I spent the next year trying to recapture that moment. And obviously it worked and then it didn't work. But when we take away the drug or the alcohol or the gambling or the sex or the overeating or the undereating, then what we're left with is that question of, what are we hungry for? What do I truly desire here? And then we can start being curious about how we can um, do that or be that or get that in a different way than something that might be causing destruction in our life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you were speaking, I was just thinking about my life and how I was yearning for something that I wasn't getting, and I got it from alcohol initially. I got it from alcohol. For me, that was my strategy. It was my brilliant strategy. It was my way of dealing with it. I know you don't like saying coping mechanism, so that's why I'm saying dealing with it, or looking for something away from what I was getting. And it was my strategy was drinking alcohol, and then from that it went to drugs, and I took that with me through to adult life, and everything that I did, I dealt with it in that way, because yes, it did make me feel good. It made me feel alive. It made me feel connected.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you look at the the Buddhist definition of suffering, it's clinging and aversion, right? And a simpler way to say that is, I want more of this and less of that. And Buddha 2,500 years ago said that's the root of suffering, and that really is true, and that is so clear with addiction, right? Because for me, drugs was like, I want to feel that or I don't want to feel this, and right there is the definition of suffering. So I'm chasing something, and I'm chasing something that worked once, twice, three times, But then, that deeper, I'm creating more suffering by that, right? Because then I believe I can only be happy when I have this. And then, we're kind of toward the end of our show here, but we're bringing back to one of the early points, and that is we're a highly addicted culture. And a lot of it is a destination addiction. I mean, certainly true in Western culture. When I get the next degree, when I get my home, when I get uh, the perfect relationship, then I'll be happy, right? And there's an idea that there's always this, once I get X, Y, and Z, then I can be happy. And that's really addiction in its simplest form. I'm chasing something that's not here right now. And so um, I think a lot of the recovery models end up unconsciously creating more of that. Let me work a step in a certain way, and once I do that, then I can be better. Once I make amends, I'll feel better. And all of that is valid. And then there's a place where it's like, oh, this isn't about anything but right now. And can I reconnect with my true nature? Can I, in this moment, move away from clinging and aversion and learn how to be present with what is? And that really is recovery to me.
The desire for something which is unavailable and the avoiding of something that's unavoidable is the source of human suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so true. We've got Angel. Welcome, Angel. We haven't seen Angel for ages. How you doing, Angel? She says, look behind the mind and be free. Kimberly saying hi to Angel. We've all missed you, Angel. Welcome back to the show. We have come to an end, but there's a couple of points that Kimberly has put down because of, we were talking about family earlier, and well, I was, and she says, my sister's not talking to me and I'm going to keep moving forward. It hurts that she removes herself from my life. I believe you should always be there and come from love. Ask, how can I help you, instead of pulling away? Then she put, yuck, we need to bond, and grace and healing prayers for all suffering will overcome this belief. You definitely deserve a better life, and don't ever feel you have gone too far down. Get back up. There's always a way. Thank you very much, Kimberly. She's saying, have a wonderful day. It's warming up at your home. She's talking to Angel. TJ, what a lovely show again. It just flies by when we talk, and there's so much I want to say and there's so much that we want to talk about, but I guess we'll see you same day next month, I believe.
Yeah,
definitely.
I'm always delighted to be in conversation with you, Saf. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, TJ, and hopefully, I think I've got Jeremy next week. So Jeremy Miller will be with me next week, unless he's gallivanting around the country with TJ Woodward. I don't know, but if he's not,
next week we're going to the exciting city of San Jose, California. We'll be there.
Oh, well, is Jeremy going to be there? Oh, that's where he's at, isn't he? Yeah. Before we go, sorry, TJ, we have got a minute or two, but I've just had a message on here, and I don't want to ignore this message. It's from a guy who I think is new to the show. His name's Norman. Hi, Norman Mia. Welcome. And he asked this question. I think we'll finish on this. Is it true abusers will abuse themselves? And I'll carry on what he's saying. He's saying question mark, and then he says, "Is it true? Is it true? Abused is learned behavior." I'm going to say something very quickly to that, and then I'll let TJ finish the show off. We are running a bit over, so I'll be very quick, Norman. But I wanted to address this because, first, I think you're new to the show, and two, I think it's an important question that you've asked. What I do know, I've been I'm a survivor of abuse. Don't like calling it victim. And what I did find is that as I grew older and I grew into adult life, it was a case of the abused becomes the abuser. Not that I abused in the same way as I got abused, but in a different kind of way, in a way of having a bit of freedom, a bit of power, capabilities. So in my case, yes. It doesn't make it right. It was very wrong what I did. As I say, I never got abused. I never abused the way I got abused. It wasn't the same kind of abuse by any stretch of the imagination, but it was doing things that are not acceptable, inappropriate, and I'm not proud of it. So, is it because I got abused? I think it has a big part to do with that. TJ?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to close with something really simple, and then maybe that's where we can pick up. If we remember staff, we can do our next show on that, right? Continuing the cycle of abuse. But I'm going to say it really simply, and we've heard this before: hurt people hurt people. And then I also want to close with this, and that is healed people heal people.
Wow. Uh, wow. I've got the, because I'm both. I was that, and now I'm
Yeah,
this.
for sure. Yeah,
Wow.
me too.
Yeah. So I want to close the show again and say those words just in case you didn't hear it. Hurt people, hurt people. Healed people, heal people. Until next week, I'll be back next week at Universal Recovery. TJ will be back with us this Tuesday, 4 weeks' time. Be safe. You can always find us on our websites, safbuckley.com, tjwoodward.com. If you need to reach out, I know I'm going to be chatting to Kimberly tomorrow, so I haven't forgotten you. Kimberly, we'll have a nice little chat tomorrow. But until the next time, God bless. TJ, thank you very much, as always.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Bye.